Today we're going to tackle an issue that happens to a lot of us, fixing a compressor that works whenever it wants to. This is Sac2uneak and you're watching Try This at Home. First and foremost, disconnect power from the battery. This is called a check valve. It allows air to flow into the tanks but not feed back to the compressor. If you don't have a check valve or would just like to remain safe, open the drain plug to release the air that's inside of your reserve tanks. Honestly, you should be doing this at least once a month to prevent moisture buildup inside. Holding the check valve in place, unscrew the steel braided hose that's attached, being careful not to bend it. Undo all the wiring. Unbolt the compressor and remove it from the vehicle. First, we're going to remove the air filter. This should only be hand tight. Next, hold the bolt on the top to remove the steel braided hose. Again, don't bend this puppy. Using an Allen wrench, unscrew the 4 screws on the top, then lift up. This rubber gasket or O-ring will be cleaned and seated into the insert of this black heatsink during reassembly. Lift up to remove the heatsink. Here's another rubber gasket that will be cleaned and seated into the insert of the purple body for reassembly later. Now we undo the 4 screws on the back of the compressor. Removing the panel will expose another rubber gasket. Clean this gasket and surrounding metals and place it back into the insert of the body. Verify the motor still spins, checking for debris or metal shavings. If you see metal shavings in there, it may be time for a new compressor. If the unit is seized or not moving, it may be the sealed bearings or the electric motor winding. To replace those, you'll need to remove this C-clip using a C-clip removal tool. This unit seems to move fine, so let's continue. Now loosen all 4 screws on this end. I remove the bottom 2 screws first. These hold the feet and support beams in place. These support beams just slide off of the screws that are mounted on the opposite side. These screws will stay there and not be removed. Remove the 2 smaller screws, keeping them separate from the others. As you can see, there is a substantial difference in length compared to the others. Now we just slide off the beauty cover. Next, we'll remove these 2 8mm nuts and slide the housing off. This metal O-ring acts as a spring to prevent the bearing from grinding against the compressor wall. We'll place this back into the housing after it's cleaned for reassembly later. These are called brushes. They are spring-loaded. Sometimes these need replacing. However, in this case, I'll just give this wire a little bit more slack so the brushes can spring further out. If they do need replacing, however, you can often unplug the unit from here. Oftentimes, these connectors are soldered to the board. If that's the case, you'll need to unscrew them or desolder them for replacement. Using either electrical cleaner or brake cleaner, spray the terminals and blow them dry to clear the debris. Follow it up by wiping it down with a cloth. Check the electric motor for frays. If everything looks okay, use an air hose to clean out the carbon buildup. Be sure to wear goggles and a respirator. As you can see, this gets messy. Rotate the motor, listening for scratching noises. If you do hear scratching noises, or the motor doesn't move, it's most likely damaged and needs replacing. After you've got all your parts clean, place your gaskets and O-rings back into the respective seatings. It's time for reassembly. I find it easier to slide the motor into the brush assembly housing like so. You can see I've lifted it off the table, so I'm working with the flat surface, and I've made room for the wires. I then replace the 8mm nuts by hand, then tighten them down with the socket wrench. This would be a good time to give it one last wipe down before it's all back together. Reattach the plate using the 2 smaller screws. Slide the support beams into place. Then attach the feet using the 2 lower screws. Any replacement parts you need can usually be found on the manufacturer's website. Let's go ahead and hand tighten the air filter. Since the bench test was a success, I'll be reattaching the steel braided hose. Reinstall the air compressor and we're done. Back in business. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe.